Let's be brutally honest. The real threats in your life don't scream. They whisper. They don't attack. They smile. They show up not as enemies, but as friends, lovers, advisors. They know how to mirror your values, how to say what you want to hear, how to make you feel seen until you're blind to their intentions. That's the trick. Treachery doesn't walk in with a knife. It waits for you to hand it over willingly. You've been taught to believe in the goodness of others, that trust, is noble, that vulnerability is strength. And in an ideal world, maybe that's true, but Machiavelli didn't write for an ideal world. He wrote for the real one. A world where masks are currency, where some people get close to study you, not to support you, where the most dangerous betrayal doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from those you welcomed into your inner circle. This isn't a call to hate, it's a demand to see, to observe without reacting, to respond without revealing, to build alliances based on evidence, not emotion, and above all, to stop offering your loyalty to people who only see it as leverage. If you've been broken, used, misled, it wasn't just their deceit. It was your lack of defense. But now you know, and knowing changes everything. What follows are not theories, they are weapons. 7 rules for recognizing and disarming the fake, the charming, the treacherous. 7 strategies for reclaiming your power in a world that rewards the manipulator and punishes the naive. This is your blueprint, not for revenge, for sovereignty. 1. Stop projecting your morality onto others. You make yourself vulnerable not by being good, but by assuming others are too. What you call betrayal often starts with you, with the assumption that your standards are shared, that because you don't lie, others won't, that because you mean well, they do too. But morality isn't contagious, and loyalty is not a default setting. It's a decision. Some people don't act out of principle, they act out of advantage. If being kind gets them so meething, they'll do it. If smiling wins trust, they'll perform it. But don't mistake the act for the actor. What looks like connection may just be calibration. You gave them access because you thought they were like you. That was your error. You expected conscience in those who've never had to pay the price for lacking one. Machiavelli never said, trust no one. He said, trust slowly with eyes open. When you believe someone's intention before you see their pattern, you become an easy target. The treacherous don't always lie. Sometimes they just wait, knowing you'll fill the silence with fantasy. It's easy to fool someone who's desperate to believe. So ask yourself, have you ever mistaken agreement for integrity? Have you confused attention with care, or thought someone was safe simply because they were familiar? People don't always reveal who they are. They reveal what you let them be. The ones who use you aren't always deceptive. Sometimes they're just responding to your lack of caution. If you never test someone's limits, how would you know where they break? If you never say no, how would you see how they handle resistance? It's not cynicism to be cautious. It's wisdom earned by pain. What you've been calling betrayal might have been avoidable if you hadn't projected your values onto someone who was never playing by your rules. So stop assuming alignment where none exists. Start watching what people do when you stop giving. Their reaction to your boundaries tells you everything their words never will. Some people don't need to lie to win your trust. They just need you to keep pretending they deserve it. And that's on you. 2. Trust what people do, not what they say. The fake ones speak in promises. They perform sincerity. They over-explain their good intentions but vanish when accountability is required. They say, I care, but never ask questions. They say, I'm here, but only when it's easy. And the moment you stop being convenient, they stop responding. If you're paying attention, they always show you, but it's easier to pretend they didn't. Because the alternative means admitting you were wrong about them, and most people would rather suffer a little longer than confront that discomfort. A person's truth is in their default, not in their highlight reel, not in their performance, but in how they act when there's nothing to gain, when you're no longer useful, when their ego feels threatened. Here's the problem. We confuse charisma with character. Someone looks confident, articulate, thoughtful, and we assign them virtues they never proved. But those traits are aesthetic, real chew. Character isn't loud, it's revealed in quiet consistency. In the boring moments, in the moments where no one's watching. Most people will respect your boundaries as long as they're never tested. The moment you say no, the mask slips. The moment you disagree, the tone changes. Pay attention not to how people treat you when you agree with them, but when you don't. That's when the real person speaks. The ones you should be wary of are not the ones who make mistakes. Everyone fails, sometimes. Everyone disappoints someone. No, the real red flag is someone who refuses to acknowledge when they've done it. The one who gaslights you into thinking you misunderstood. The one who rewrites events to make themselves the victim. That's not forgetfulness, that's deflection, and it's dangerous. If you watch long enough, the truth always shows. But most people don't watch, they listen, they explain things away, they edit the memory to make it hurt less. And by the time the betrayal hits, they call it sudden. It wasn't, it was just ignored. The truth is, the more someone talks about how good they are, the more you should wait before believing it. Good people don't usually need to convince you. They don't have rehearsed lines. They just show up, again and again, with actions that don't need clarification. And here's where it gets worse. Some will play the long game. They'll earn your trust through repeated gestures. They'll invest just enough to look credible. But what you don't see is that all of it is calculated. They're not building with you, they're building leverage. And the moment they see an opportunity, they'll use everything they've gathered to shift the dynamic in their favor. Trust is not a gift, it's a trade. Don't offer it freely. Let people earn it, not with words, but with what they do when nothing forces them to. Because behavior is always the true language, and unlike words, it never lies for long. 3. Never confront a snake head-on. Calling someone out might satisfy your pride, but it rarely serves your strategy, especially if that person thrives in deception. The moment you expose them, they adjust, they become careful, they fine-tune their performance, and you lose your chance to observe them clearly. That's the irony. When you finally see who someone is, your first instinct is to confront, to speak the truth, to make them acknowledge what they did. But confrontation almost never reveals character. It triggers performance. It forces the mask back on. If you suspect someone is hiding their motives, don't ask questions. Don't challenge them. Let them move as they wish. Let them believe they're safe in your trust. That's when the most valuable information appears. Deception always needs room to breathe. If you cut it off too early, you don't see the full picture. You only see what you interrupted. But if you stay silent, their behavior unfolds. Their story stops being edited. The inconsistencies grow louder. The patterns grow clearer. People who manipulate don't like unknowns. They rely on your reactions to stay in control. When you say nothing, when you don't push back, you create uncertainty. And that uncertainty is your leverage. Watch how they speak when you don't affirm. Watch how they act when you stop giving. Watch how they justify the small things, the lies that don't matter, the changed details, the deflections. That's where the truth is buried. It's tempting to confront because silence feels weak. But silence isn't weakness. Silence is surveillance. It's the pause that gathers everything. It's the moment when you step back and let the game play itself out. Snakes don't bite while being watched. They wait, they measure. And the only way to let them expose themselves is to look away, strategically. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're naive. They'll get comfortable. They'll speak too soon. They'll leave trails, and when they do, you won't need to accuse. You'll already know. There's a quiet kind of revenge that doesn't involve punishment. It involves clarity. You don't hurt them. You outgrow them. You stop responding. You remove access, no arguments, no closure, just absence. The manipulative depend on your need to be understood, to explain yourself, to get justice. When you refuse all of that, you become unpredictable, and nothing scares a deceiver more, 'tis unpredictability. Most people reveal themselves when they think you're not paying attention. That's why you must never show your hand too early. Hold your doubts quietly, gather your evidence, test their reactions without warning. Ask indirect questions, mention something casually and observe their face. Let discomfort speak. Never forget, the goal isn't confrontation, it's confirmation. You're not looking to change them. You're watching to understand them. And once you understand, you decide, quietly, finally, without regret. They won't see it coming. They'll be confused when you stop engaging. They'll ask what happened, but they'll already know, and the silence will say what words never could. You don't owe liars your outrage. You owe yourself a clean exit. 4. Use distance as a weapon. Not every threat needs confrontation. Some just need space. There's a type of person who doesn't argue, doesn't demand, doesn't insult. They simply stay close. Too close. Not out of love, but control. They smile, they ask questions, they flatter. But their real motive is access. The manipulator doesn't always try to overpower you. Sometimes they just try to surround you. They stay involved in your life, not because they support it, but because they want to monitor it. And the longer you let them stay, the more difficult it becomes to see what's actually happening. Their presence becomes normal. Their attention feels flattering. You start measuring your day around their opinion, and that's when they have you. You don't realize how much space they take up until you pull back, until you don't reply, until you stop offering updates, until you stop explaining your every move. That's when the silence becomes a mirror, and what it shows can be unsettling. Fake people don't handle absence well. They thrive in proximity. It's how they read you. It's how they adapt. When you remove yourself, you remove their fuel. You starve their control, and in doing so, you see what they were really there for. Distance doesn't always mean abandonment. Sometimes it's the only way to see clearly. From afar, you notice the emotional patterns you missed, the way they only checked on you when it benefited them, the way they disappear. Ed, when you said no, the way they reappeared when you started doing better. None of that is random. It's strategic. And here's the part many miss. You don't need to announce your withdrawal. You don't need to explain why. Just stop being available. Stop volunteering information. Stop offering your time without question. Let your absence speak for you. Those who care will reach out honestly. They'll notice the change and respond with curiosity, not guilt-tripping. But the fake? They'll either lash out or vanish completely. Both outcomes are answers. Distance tests relationships more than closeness ever could. Anyone can pretend in comfort. It's space that reveals real alignment. You are not obligated to keep people close just because they once knew you. You're allowed to create new boundaries. You're allowed to walk away without applause. You're allowed to protect your energy as a non-negotiable. Some relationships don't need closure. They need silence. Some people don't need your forgiveness. They need your absence. You don't have to make a point. You just have to leave. The quiet withdrawal is often louder than confrontation. It removes the spotlight. It takes the air out of their manipulation. It leaves them alone with their intentions and no audience. Protect your time, protect your peace. Let distance do what words never could. 5. Beat deception with superior strategy. Deception isn't random, it's calculated, and the only way to defeat it isn't morality, it's strategy. Liars don't always expect to be caught. They expect to be believed. They rely on your desire for harmony, your hope for the best, your fear of conflict. And that's where they operate, in the gap between what is and what you want it to be. You can't out-talk a manipulator. They've rehearsed. You can't out-feel them either. They're immune to guilt. What you can do is outthink them. Strategy begins with silence. The more you say, the more data they collect. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to exploit. Hold your emotions like currency. Offer nothing unless it serves you. Let them speak first. Let them explain. Let them reveal where their version of reality begins to twist. Don't challenge it immediately. Just file it. The truth always folds under pressure, but you must let them build the structure themselves, as the collapse is cleaner that way. Be boring, be slow, be unreadable. This frustrates those who feed off reaction. They poke you to get a rise. They lie to see if you'll correct them. They provoke to test your limits. But when you don't respond, when you stay composed, they lose ground, not because you beat them, but because they can't use you. Your power is not in the argument, it's in the absence of engagement. The game isn't about being louder, it's about being smarter. Control your narrative. Don't tell them what you plan to do. Let your actions replace the speech. Move in silence. Make changes without warning. Cut ties without ceremony. When you know someone is false, your best weapon is unpredictability. It creates tension they can't resolve, and it removes the one thing they count on, your cooperation. Manipulators don't fear strength. They fear ambiguity. The kind of quiet you hold when you no longer care what they think. The kind of distance thou at doesn't come with an explanation. The kind of cold that isn't angry, it's done. That's the real victory, not making a point, but making them irrelevant. 6. Don't respond to provocation. Some people don't want resolution. They want a reaction. They don't care if you understand them. They don't want truth. They want attention. And the fastest way to feed them is to respond emotionally. The manipulator's goal is control, not clarity. They'll say something that stings. They'll leave at the worst moment. They'll show up late, say just enough to destabilize you, then act innocent. All of it is engineered to get one thing: your reaction. Once you respond, the frame shifts. You're no longer in control. You're explaining, defending, clarifying, and they've won. Instead, pause. Let their words hang in the air. Let the silence do the work. Let them wonder what you're thinking. The more confused they are, the more you regain control. Stillness isn't weakness, it's pressure. It forces the other person to reveal more, to fill the space, to overstep. And when they do, you learn exactly who they are. You don't need to argue to prove your strength. You don't need to shout to show your position. The person who speaks least often holds the most weight. The most dangerous move in any conflict is stillness. It's when you stop explaining, when you stop clarifying your intentions, when you no longer give them access to your inner world. A manipulator needs feedback. They need to know what you feel, what you plan, how you'll respond. It's how they stay in control. If they don't get that, they fall apart. RT. Because silence isn't neutral to them. It's a threat. Let them project, let them spiral, let them twist the silence into whatever story they want. Because at that point, they're no longer reacting to you. They're reacting to themselves. When you deny the manipulator your reaction, you introduce doubt into their control. They start second-guessing. They start adjusting. They begin to unravel, not because you attacked, but because you didn't. They will test you again. They'll try to bait you with guilt, with silence, with passive aggression. That's when you need to remember, your response isn't just an answer, it's a door. Don't open it unless you want them inside again. Hold your position. Don't move just to ease discomfort. Discomfort is where control changes hands. Let it sit. Let it stretch. Let them fumble through it alone. Because when you stop responding, they stop winning. 7. Build a fortress of independence. Some people don't want you to grow, not because they hate you, but because they need you weak. They need your confusion to feel certain, your dependence to feel powerful, your silence to feel wise. It's not always malicious, sometimes it's just habit, but the result is the same. You stay small and they stay relevant. The strongest manipulation isn't done with force, it's done with help. The kind that makes you feel safe but keeps you stagnant. The kind that offers advice but never teaches you how to think for yourself. If they always solve your problems, you'll always depend on them. And that's the goal. The only way to escape this cycle is independence. Not isolation, but internal structure, emotional discipline, mental clarity, financial freedom. A life that doesn't revolve around who approves of it. You must become your own source. You must know how to calm your own mind, how to support yourself when no one shows up, how to keep going when no one claps. That's where your power starts, not in rebellion, but in self-governance. Build a life that doesn't need explanation, one that stands even when no one's validating it. Learn to enjoy your own company so you don't fall for anyone who offers attention. The more stable you become, the more clear your relationships become. You'll see who was there out of habit, who stayed because you needed them, not because they valued you. And you'll start choosing people based on alignment, not need. When you no longer need to be rescued, the fake heroes disappear. And that's the greatest filter of all. Self-sufficiency isn't selfish, it's safety. When you rely on others for your identity, your worth, or your stability, you offer leverage. And those with poor intentions will use it. Start small. Solve problems without asking for rescue. Sit with discomfort without rushing to distraction. Make decisions that reflect your standards, not you. Our fears. The strength you build this way is slow, but it lasts. Eventually, the people who used to manipulate you will realize they have nothing left to use. No weakness to exploit, no access to your insecurity and that moment. That's your quiet liberation. They don't need to know you've outgrown them. They'll feel it in your absence, in your silence, in the boundaries they can't cross anymore. You won't need to say a word. Let's not sugarcoat it. There was a time when your downfall wasn't their manipulation, but your refusal to see it. You gave the benefit of the doubt, extended second chances, handed over access without requiring proof of intention. You believed that sincerity protected you. You believed that being real would invite realness. It didn't. It invited predators in polished clothing. And now, here you are, wiser, colder, not bitter, strategic. You've stopped expecting loyalty from a port. Unists. You've stopped bleeding for those who'd never bandage you. You've stopped offering transparency to people who only collect secrets like weapons. That shift isn't weakness. That's your birth into power. The treacherous never fear the naive. They fear the awakened. The ones who no longer explain themselves. The ones who no longer need to be liked. The ones who disappear quietly, leave no trace, and never return to the same battlefield twice. The ones who've learned that true control doesn't scream, it watches, waits, chooses. So let them call you distant, let them say you've changed, because you have. You no longer offer your light to anyone who brings shadows. You no longer participate in games where the rules are written by cowards. You are not a servant to approval. You are not an emotional ATM. From now on, every word you speak will have purpose. Every silence will be intentional. Every presence will be earned. And every bond will be tested before T's trusted. Machiavelli never asked you to stop feeling. He asked you to stop giving your feelings away without calculation. The ones who fear your new silence aren't confused. They're exposed, because silence is not emptiness. It is armor. It is elegance. It is war without bloodshed. You've now seen the pieces, learned the rules, and understood the illusions. What's left is not a question of knowledge, but choice. So the final move is yours. Will you go back to being available to everyone, or will you finally become unreachable to the unworthy? Because those who don't deserve your trust no longer deserve your explanation, and those who feared your rise will now fear your silence. You're not part of the game anymore. You've become the board,